710. Salim MuWakkil here on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. To stream online, just go to www.wvon.com. And if you hear my voice, it's clear that you've reached that place where we reflect on the news of the week and try to make some sense of it. Here I am again. Beautiful Wednesday evening. And I'm privileged to have the pleasure of connecting to America's most astute radio audience. We'll be discussing many issues in the news this evening, including the naming of Susan Rice as President Barack Obama's third national security advisor. Rice, who is now the U.S. ambassador to the UN and a former Assistant Secretary of State for Africa during the Clinton administration, was among the first national security figures to join the Obama campaign. And she led the national security team during the campaigns, during the campaign itself and during the transition to the actual administration. Many people suspected that she would be named a national security advisor then, but she went to another post, UN ambassador. And for those wary of the Obama administration's forays into Africa, Rice's appointment is a little troubling, quite frankly, because she was there when the Rwandan genocide erupted during the Clinton administration and notoriously made the wrong decision. But in trying to amend that decision or account for it, atone for it, let us say, she urged so-called humanitarian intervention into Libya, and that's what resulted in the overthrow of Colonel Gaddafi. And you know, a lot of folks are afraid that she might make the same kind of humanitarian intervention into Syria, and not just Syria, but because her expertise is Africa, and because the U.S. seems to be pivoting toward Africa, you know, in its combat role with more incursions into Somalia and into northern Niger and into even Nigeria. We put a bounty on Boko Haram, about Boko Haram leader. So we're involved in that as well. And of course, in East Africa, Uganda and the Republic of Congo, where we are looking for, you know, the Lord's Resistance Army's leader, the defunct Lord's Resistance Army's leader, but we're there anyway. So we're in Somalia, we're in Djibouti, which is way up in the Horn of Africa, and we're in Kenya, we're in many of the nations of Africa, and we are increasing our military footstep while China is increasing its economic footstep. And with Susan Rice as the security advisor, national security advisor, it is likely that we will become even more involved on the continent. You know, that doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing, but our history seems to indicate that it will be a negative thing. And aside from all of that, Susan Rice is still widely disliked by the Republicans. You know, they still credit her with proliferating erroneous information about Benghazi when she appeared on those Sunday news programs, although it's clear now that she was merely parroting talking points that were prepared by the State Department and the Pentagon and the CIA. So she has a very minor role in that, but the GOP still wants to focus on her because of that. I think they sense that she's a progressive of some sort, and so they want to keep her out of the upper reaches of the administration. I suspect that's the source of their objection. And her appointment will likely, you know, worsen the president's attempt at bipartisan outreach, which is, you know, pretty much defunct anyway. Well, Representative Bobby Rush met with Republican Senator Mark Kirk, and they discussed Kirk's controversial suggestion that he wanted to launch a campaign for a mass dragnet of black men. Kirk said he wanted to see all 18,000 members of the GDs, the Gangster Disciples, prosecuted in federal court, and he said he believes, quote, it's completely within the capability of the United States government to crush a major urban gang, unquote. He estimated that crushing phenomena would take about $30 million to do, and of course that upset many people. Congressman Rush was one who, used some rather undiplomatic language in denouncing the suggestion, saying it was a white boy solution. I think his point was that it is a kind of alien, the kind of solution that someone who is alien to the culture would make, not one that would be made by someone who was familiar with the culture and had some empathy for what was going on in our communities. It was clear that Kirk's comments were really designed really to attract attention. And Congressman Rush told folks at the Congress, the state of Black Chicago Congress on Saturday, that he was going to assign Michelle Wallace's book, Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, to them and have them report on it. And he did indeed, from the press reports, he did indeed present both Kirk and Durbin, Senator Dick Durbin, with copies of that book. And it would really be, I think, edifying if they were to read it, seriously read it. They would learn a lot, because the book is quite revelatory, especially for someone who's not at all familiar with the terrain. So yeah, I think that was a good suggestion. And from what I understand, they got along. They made up and had a diplomatic, cordial conversation about the issue. And the issue is real. The crime in our community is a real thing, and street organizations, unfortunately, such as they are these days, are implicated, heavily implicated. But it's not the right way to go to talk about incarcerating, mass incarceration. I mean, that's a problem as it is. Okay, the GOP is still gunning for Attorney General Eric Holder, and apparently some folks in the Obama administration also are eager to see him go. All kind of leaks came out. New York Times reported on some folks within the administration who say it may be better for him to leave. He may be crippling the president's agenda with his presence. But of course, he is very close to the president. The president holds him in high esteem, and he's been there since the beginning, and was one of the cabinet officials who apparently was going to go on for the entire 8 years, and still may. They certainly don't want him to leave now under pressure from a Republican opposition, which is really baseless. Their opposition is, you'll remember that he was held in contempt by the House, although he was completely exonerated by a later investigation, and the House didn't make any kind of apology. It made no attempt to rescind that vote that it made, and so he has a gripe, I think, a righteous grievance that he wants to make sure that they see no satisfaction on, and I'm with that, Although I'm not a Holder fan. I think he's made some mistakes. I think this AP sequester was a big mistake. I'm not so sure about his the investigation of the Fox News man, James Rosen. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Do you think he'll go? What do you think about it? Syria continues to deteriorate, as into a sectarian clash. As Lebanon's Hezbollah becomes much more deeply involved in the fray, and actually is turning the tide toward the Syrian government, toward the Assad regime. The rebels were threatening very seriously at one point, but now their threat seems to have receded, because Hezbollah has come in and has asserted their presence pretty strongly. They push the opposition back and have turned the tide. And of course, and Russia is planning to send some anti-aircraft missiles to Syria. All of that is making the U.S. extremely nervous, and its allies, the U.S. and its allies, is extremely nervous, and putting increasing pressure on the Obama administration to somehow get involved in this situation. He's resisted admirably thus far, in large part because this country is pretty fatigued, war fatigued. Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, all of these places, and really we've seen no serious improvement in our international situation as a result of these engagements. In fact, one might say that all we've done thus far is empower other forces. For example, Iran and Iraq are closer now. China is the leading beneficiary of Iraqi oil, which a lot of folks said we were there for the oil. It was a war for oil. Well, that didn't come to pass. China is reaping the benefits of that. So a lot of folks are wondering where do these military adventures lead us, and would one in Syria lead us somewhere different, or should we just let it develop as it wants to, without our assistance? Because really, every choice seems to be a bad one for this administration. If they were to get involved, who would they help? The Salafists, those same jihadi forces who have taken over Libya and gunning for the Shia. As I say, as I've made the point previously, I really think that our underlying motive here is to foment this ongoing civil turmoil, the civil war in Islam between the Shia and the Sunni. And the Syria battle could be the precipitating spark in that, because Hezbollah is a Shia group that's protecting the Assad regime, which is Shia, or Alawite, which is a version of Shia Islam, and the rebels are predominantly Sunni, and they want Syria to be a part of the great Arab nation, the great Sunni Arab nations, and so we may be involved for that reason. What do you think? To try to push the bogus IRS and Benghazi confusions into actual scandals, although the IRS's reckless spending sprees that have recently been publicized are allowing the GOP to keep this issue in the headlines. So we won't see the last of that. They'll keep flailing that issue, although it's pretty much a dead horse. Okay, let's find out what's on your minds and get started this evening. Maceo, hey brother, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Salim?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well.
Oh, great. And hello to the WVON listeners, your listeners, Albert Woods, Roxanne, and Mansong, too. Salim, I just want to touch slightly on your subject, that is with Susan Rice. And then, I have a few things that I wanted to revisit from Saturday, if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right. In reference to Susan Rice, now, with this position, does she go right into this position, or does she have to be confirmed?
Oh, she goes right into it.
Oh, she does? Mm-hmm. So she is, as we speak, she is the national security.
Well, not yet. I mean, I think her formal appointment begins after the current national security advisor leaves. So,
I see. Mm-hmm. And who is that?
That is his name is man. It'll come to me in a minute.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. But essentially, I just wanted to know whether she had to go through a confirmation and anything like that, and you pretty much answered that question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, in reference to Saturday,
Tom Donilon.
Don Donilon.
Yeah, Donilon. Yeah, that's the current National Security Advisor.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much. In reference to Saturday, now, Salim, there is fiction and there is make-believe, and then there is the truth. Now, what Zambezi mentioned to you about me saying Zambini, about me saying that Dell's other singers couldn't sing, that's fiction. That's make-believe. What the truth is that function, it was a battle between the Temptations and the Dells, and I love both of them. I admire them. But the thing is that we were asked to select one. And I said that the Temptations were the better group because of their versatility, because of their choreography, because of their harmony, because of their 5 lead singers who, incidentally, had records leading all by themselves. Each of them have had, pretty good records in terms of leads. But outside of that, I never, ever said that the other Dell singers couldn't sing. I mean, that's far-fetched. And outside of that, too, he had a little quiz, and he didn't mention that I was one or two people or 3 people to ace that quiz.
Okay. All right. Mason, I guess you got some meetings straight on that one. All right.
Yeah, but anyway, but let me just set the record straight. I love the Dells, and my prayer
for those who weren't privileged to hear our Saturday night discussion. It was a discussion about the relative talent of the Dells, the singing group, the Dells, and the Temptations. And Sambini said that Maceo rather dismissively evaluated the Dells as not as good as the Temptations, and not having good singers in the group, or something like that, is what he said.
Yeah, in terms of their other singers outside of Marvin, and then my prayers go out to Marvin's family. Outside of Marvin and the tenor, he was saying that I said that the other guys couldn't sing and they couldn't sing lead, but that is not what I said.
Okay,
I said that.
Okay, we got you, man.
Okay, all right. Let me just go on, and then also in terms of this situation in regards to the African presence in the United States, or in the North, in the Western Hemisphere, in the North. In this particular area of the country, I forgot to mention Basil Davison. Basil Davison is another scholar, Steve, of epic proportion. His study of African history and archaeology helped to change the view of Africa from being a backwards and unrefined civilization to a very sophisticated culturally and technologically. And lastly, Tony Jackson's birthday is today, and you're familiar with the great Tony Jackson, right? Yes, you are. You are. He came along. He's from New Orleans. He was born on June 5th, 1876. And you remember, I don't know, it was a little while back when I was talking about Jelly Roll Morton saying that he was the best everything. And he was, and he had that confidence, and he was pretty much the best everything. But he said, and I quote, that not Jelly Roll Morton, but Tony Jackson was the greatest single-hand entertainer in the world. I mean, pianist. If you go on YouTube and you type in his interview with the Library of Congress, he goes into that extensively, and he talks about how
Tony Jackson,
Tony Jackson. Okay. I mean, phenomenal. He talks about how he had this memory that people could ask him to play a song, and he could play it anything that you named. I mean, he had this memory bank, and also besides that, his accomplishments, his preeminence on the piano was just far beyond any other piano player at that time. And he also played here in Chicago in 1912 at the Elite Club at 3030 South State Street, Black Metropolis, the Deluxe Club, Pekin Theater, but just a preeminent, fabulous talent. And today is his birthday, and I just wanted to say happy birthday to the great Tony Jackson.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate that information. All right.
You're welcome. Have a great day. Okay.
You too. All right, Tony Jackson. Remember that name. If Jelly Roll says he was the best, he had to be near the best. Tommy, hey, man, how are you?
Hey, Salim, good evening to you.
Good evening.
And good evening to the WVON family. Hey, Salim, real quick, for Maceo's benefit, who sold more records, The Temptation or the Dells?
By far, the Temptations.
So, man, who would they say is the better singer? Is The Temptation?
Well, you know what? See, I think that in some ways it's apples and oranges, man. Because when you talk about different era in music, you bring up all new criteria. You know, the Dells are from one era. The Temptations actually are from another era. They overlap a little bit, but they are of different caliber. You know, the Temptations were a different kind of group. The Dells, at the time when the Dells were big, you know, doo-wop was a certain kind of genre that had certain limitations in terms of its presentation and whatnot. And when the Temptations came along, man, that had expanded pretty expansively, you know?
Exactly. And my point was that both groups were absolutely phenomenal in their repertoire. But one came from one time, another came from a different time.
That's right.
And you would have to look at who was writing what for either one and who was on what label for either one. But, you know, what I really called in for is Salim. Let's deal with Kirk and Rush. Do you remember how many times I've called into the radio station and said that for anybody who felt and believed that the federal government could not come in and squash the absolute carnage that's going on all over the nation, then they clearly are misinformed. And then what comes out of Kirk's mouth, but to say that he felt clearly that the federal government, he ain't said nothing about the city. He ain't said nothing about the state.
That's right.
He said the federal government.
He sure did.
And if that ain't, if that isn't even, if that ain't the antithesis of the absurdity of the whole thing, it's when now they're reporting that both men came to the conclusion that yes, there is a problem in Chicago, and what they're going to do is walk through the neighborhood and talk to the people. I mean, there's no insult level. None. I mean.
Well, no, I think a lot of people were insulted by that, Tommy. No, don't you think?
I don't think so, man, because if so, then you remember what I also told you about the consensus candidate from the very moment that Emmanuel said that he was going to be the mayor, that the machine was alive and well, and the brilliant stroke that they did, that they could turn around and tell a particular people that these are the people that you have to vote for, and that's it, according to some other so-called religious leaders and businessmen, and that was it. And then this is where I'm going, and I'll hang up, because in back of all of that, how come nobody smells the absolute cow manure when it comes to Tito Hardiman? And now all of a sudden, from the moment that I heard this man's voice, it was always Tito Hardiman and ceasefire. Not Tito Hardiman and the founder, or whatever this guy's name, or the organization. And none of these people ever came to the forefront, just Tito Hardiman. Now, all of a sudden, the mayor jumps up, gives this group $1 million. Tito Hardiman finds himself in a bit of trouble, no support whatsoever. They turn around and say he's on administrative leave with pay. I said, hold on, this sounds like the police department talking, man. This sounds like the bureaucracy from the city talking and stuff. And then the next day, the man is absolutely fired. Salim, all I'm saying in closing is this. You know, we have been fortunate.
You jumped around a lot, Tommy. Tie it together. Let me see if you can tie it together.
It all together. There's a direct correlation and connection, man, with the violence that's going on in this city. For those who say they're here to quell that violence, and a very stinky trail of money that's going to organizations that get money, and little of it makes its way down to the individuals that need it. And it really seems like Tito Hardeman put these people where they wanted to be. Now get rid of them. Period. Now here comes somebody else, some other name you've never heard, and they're supposed to go in as acting. And I'm only saying this, Salim. At what point do we really pay attention and wake up and recognize that the only solution that we have is to go downtown? Thank you, Salim, and God bless you.
All right. Thank you, Tommy. Yeah. Well, I think, this money thing, the thing that Kirk was talking about is $30 million. And one of the things that Representative Rush pointed to was that, $30 million would do a lot to improve life in many of these neighborhoods. Many jobs, some quality health care, maybe some opening these mental health centers again, or some financial sustenance to some of these schools that are closing, that are said to be unsustainable. All kinds of things can be done with that $30 million, although it will take a lot more than that. But still, that $30 million is important. And I guess you can say that there is a connection between ceasefire's efforts and that, because it is money that is going toward improving our communities, and it is money that was considered well spent. And indeed, Tio Hardeman was the face of that program, a very positive face, who was effective as well, and had the respect of many of the folks in the organization. Gave it credibility, in fact, and it did seem a bit unceremonial the way he was dispatched. Let's go back to the phones, Brother Dwight. Hey, my brother, how you doing? Hotel.
Trying to get you off. There you go. Getting you off the speaker.
Yes, sir.
Let me see. When I was in Chicago, I picked up a badge. I think it said "Capitalism is a violent crime." That's not it exactly, but
I like that.
That's the. I think it said "Capitalism is violent crime." Anyway, this black on black violence is just white on black violence by proxy, and
yes, sir.
It will please.
No, I say exactly.
Oh, it will never be solved until we realize that these white supremacists really have us thinking we're citizens, but not enjoying the rights and privileges of citizenship. We flail at survival, and they have their tokens to make it look like, if we try and get education, we can make it. But for the vast majority, we're
But Dwight, have you? I don't know if you've heard this Nielsen report that occasionally is broadcast on WVON, but Nielsen and other polls seem to indicate that the majority of African Americans think that we are doing well. It is pretty astounding when you think of it, but it gives me pause, because it seems hard for me to believe that that folks would have that opinion. But these polls have reached a kind of consensus that the majority of African Americans think that we are doing better than we have in the past, and they're optimistic about the future.
But even in the face of to the contrary, one event, in my estimation, causes us to believe this nonsense, and it speaks to the lack of political acumen that we operate on. But that's the election of Barack Bush.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just another example of how backwards his election has taken us, in our actual condition, as well as in our thinking. Let me, if I may, move on to actually what things I called now. Mr. Steve, when I called in Saturday, I gave evidence where you can go and view the evidence of the spade. You know, you can go and get items freshly taken from the ground that trumps any of these academic names he dropped on us, and his peer review that he suggested that we read, even though I doubt that he's read the 5 authors he named and all the, you know, peer review articles and all that crap. You know, just superior white man trying to play us, you know, for dumb. We're not, Steve. You can still go to Friendship, Indiana, or you can simply go online and just Google pre-Columbian effigies, and you'll see so many black faces come up staring back at you that, and maybe even you, Steve, would not be convinced. Last point. What's her name? Samantha Powers. I heard her name mentioned in the stories about Susan Rice.
She was. That's because she's now the UN ambassador.
Okay. That's what I suspected. But you know, as you mentioned, Susan Rice was complicit in the Rwandan genocide, and the follow-up that is called 6, 7, 8, I don't know how many million Congolese to die since that genocide, you know, at the hands of Rwanda and Uganda and Burundi and, you know,
all U.S. allies.
Right, all U.S. proxies. Same as the black-on-black violent criminal is the white man's proxy. You know, these.
But Dwight, man, you're right. You're right about that proxy stuff, no doubt about it. But doesn't it relieve us of a little bit of agency to simply delegate us as pawns who are being manipulated by proxies? Doesn't it do that? Don't you think?
Well, I mean, compared to capitalism or white supremacy, you know, we've never fought and fought hard and you know, made some changes, but you know, the victory thus far is theirs. You know, we win some battles, but the victory is theirs
because they have overwhelming resources primarily.
Absolutely,
okay.
Because they do the jujitsu and they use our resources, our troops, our labor, you know, even our thoughts. You know, here in town, you know, I'm hearing people talk about the Supreme Court decision, you know, and okaying the taking of DNA simply from a person who's simply been arrested.
Right, exactly, yeah.
You know, we are. You know, I'm hearing every day that you know, they need to stop and frisk and they need to do all of this stuff, you know, to keep a couple of people safe here and there, and they might catch a criminal somewhere. But Samantha Powers, and I'm almost done. Okay, Samantha Powers is reputed to be a humanitarian
interventionist,
but I think the woman is CIA or something, because you know, I read her book Problem from Hell, and it talks about how, you know, gives all these scenarios where, you know, we need to you know, these dictators are killing their own people and we need to go and intervene and all this kind of stuff. But then Barack Bush uses her. You know, she was fired once, but he, you know, brings her back every chance he gets, and he uses her to justify us going into Libya, for instance, with that same old song. Gaddafi's killing his own people. His people got tanks and, you know, all these cannons and stuff coming at him, but he's killing. He's going to kill his own people, and I think that, like I say, she's some kind of agent, and she's just being used to justify us going in anywhere on these pretexts that we've been using throughout American history to go in and do whatever the hell we want in the name of capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Thanks, sir. All
right, Dwight. Thank you, brother. Hotep. Yes, I agree with Brother Dwight. You know, again, saying Barack Bush is kind of like being redundant, really, because all presidents have the same agenda, that is to protect and help sustain and perhaps even enhance the prospects of American empire. And, you know, that's what this president is doing as well. And Susan Rice, I also agree that she makes our incursion into Africa a lot more palatable because it is a sister who would be leading it, a black woman who apparently, because she is that, has a certain kind of image, pretty much like President Obama's image when he first came in and won the Nobel Peace Prize simply on his identity, essentially. There was no reason to give him the Peace Prize. But he was a black man who had survived the vagaries and the hostilities of American history. And so he was, automatically qualified. That's how a lot of the thinking went, and that's how a lot of the thinking is now about Susan Rice. Although her record does not speak well of that kind of reputation. All right, Pete. Good evening. How are you, sir?
Hey, Salim. Good evening, sir.
How you doing?
Look, fine. I want to talk about the state of Illinois, but first I want to talk about Roseland Hospital.
Oh man.
My brother, who's in the healthcare field right now, he's a stationary engineer, but he was with Grand Hospital as a maintenance guy just before they were going to phase everybody out. That's when the governor of Florida, Scott, was the CEO of Columbia Healthcare, who had bought Grant Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember, he got fined $1.5 billion for Medicare fraud, and some of that fraud was here in Illinois. So they got them out of here. Grant closed up. He got phased out. Then he went back when it was called the Lincoln Park Hospital, and about a month before they were going to close, down, he got the wind that the hospital wasn't going to be able to sustain itself, and started putting feelers out. Well, he went and got his stationary engineering license. He got his electrical license. He got his plumbing license. He kept upgrading his resume.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to, when you're working for these companies, you have to sometimes try and find out how some of these companies are doing. Because if something's going to come down, you're going to want to put some feelers out there, and resumes into your field, but into some other, of the healthcare industries.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it doesn't look like the rescue money is going to be coming to Roseland, and that gets me to the state of Illinois.
Yeah.
Salim, do you know that California and Minnesota are running surpluses right now?
I know California is. Yes, I do. I know California.
Yeah. Well, here's what happened. Jerry Brown, right? They always call him a kook and all this, but after Schwarzenegger ruined the state of Illinois, he came in.
The state of California, you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He raised the income tax.
Governor Moonbeam, as Royko used to call.
He raised the income tax on the upper 2% of the state of Illinois.
State of California.
I'm sorry, state of California. Fixed the pension funds, did something in the gaming industry, some other taxes and that, and they're running a surplus. And I don't hear no.
What did he do with the pension funds, Pete? Do you know?
He did the same thing that they're trying to do here. But they got it done there. Minnesota, Governor Dayton, Mark Dayton, just did the same thing. Has a surplus. In fact, he just gave.
Now, what was his method? Did he raise income tax as well?
Yeah, he did the same thing that Brown did.
Okay.
And he went into the pension funds, and he did the gaming. He's got the casinos at the racetracks. They're making money and all this, and which we've been talking about. But anyway, these guys, as governors, got their legislatures together, and they did what was best for their states. What did we do here, Salim? Last time we were down here, we passed concealed carry, which may be vetoed by the governor, right?
You're right.
We passed fracking, which I don't know what it's going to do.
Nor do many others.
And we have a we have a neutral budget with no money for anything. Now, there's something wrong here, man. There's something wrong with our politicians here in the state of Illinois. If we got 2 Democratic governors in California and Minnesota that have had to make the hard choices.
Well, what's the character of their legislatures? California Democrat,
right? And so is Minnesota,
and so is Illinois, right?
Yeah, but they brought the Republicans in. You know, they gave them some stuff that they wanted. But what are we doing here? Salim, we got to get our legislature back down to Springfield.
Yeah,
we got to get the pension funds in order. We got to get the gaming issue. You know what bill has the most available money that can come real fast to us is the gaming bill. And we also got to pass gay marriage. These other states are passing this stuff.
Yeah.
And you know what? Gay marriage, even though whatever side you stand on it, there's going to be licenses handed out. There's going to be weddings. There's going to be cakes made. There's going to be flowers, tuxedos. People in all the surrounding entities that get involved in the
it would certainly invigorate the economy of this state, without a doubt.
We got to do. Wouldn't you rather implicate this stuff, see what the hell happens, and then we go. Really, I'm serious.
No, I hear you, man.
Because you know why, Salim? We are being killed by our surrounding states. Our politicians take our money and they go to Indiana and they give it to the gambling casinos in Indiana. They double dip the pension funds. Now, here, I'll give you a perfect example. And this is not on, Judy Bartopeka, okay? But when she was retired, her pension was $165,000 a year. She's a treasurer now. Her salary went up to $200,000. When she retires, her pension's going to be $200,000. These people double dip. Hey, I lost $40,000 in 1986 on the junk bond scandal on my pension. I never got that money back.
Yes, sir.
I know a guy who just retired, 42 years, black guy, retired. He's going to get $2,300 from Social Security, $2,100 from his company. A lot of this stuff, Salim, is way out of line, especially with the pensions. And these politicians have got to get back to Springfield and do the job for the residents of the state of Illinois.
You heard?
Bringing up these bills, voting on them, implicating them, and let's move forward.
You heard Pete, y'all. Get to work. Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it. All right, let's go to Larry. Hey, Larry, how you doing?
Man, I had to stop by on Wednesday, see what you do here.
How you been, man? I've been missing you.
Good. In fact, it's getting better all the time. In fact, I know what I've been saying is about to come true.
Okay.
Because a large United States Marine Expeditionary Unit landed on the Jordanian-Syrian border at the port of Aqaba. And you know why? Because Hussein's getting ready to start a ruckus. You know why he's getting ready to start a ruckus?
You mean President Obama? Is that who you mean?
Hussein.
Oh, okay.
Whatever his name is. I don't know who he is. So I've seen no reliable documentation upon which I can provide. I'm not kidding, Salim. There is none. There really isn't.
Okay, all right.
We don't even know his name.
So
really.
one of my listeners said that I always respond to you with a belly laugh. I'm going to try to refrain from that.
But listen to me now. This is a fact, sir.
Okay.
Well, not exactly a fact, but it's a logical
surmise,
inference.
Okay.
If you look at the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Committee, it is probably clear. And again, see, everything's concealed with this guy. But this guy gave up his law license just like his wife did because he lied in his bar examination about his names, that he had never used or been known by any other names. And he put on there he hadn't. But we know Barry Sotero, Barry Sorbarka is in the State Department passport files. His father registered him under the name Barry Sotero in the St. Francis Assisi School in Jakarta, Indonesia, and other names. Now, he's supposed to reveal all that, but he didn't. And this is one reason why he probably voluntarily gave up his law. Look up the records. Don't believe Larry. Don't believe me. Now, which brings me back to the Marine Expeditionary Unit landing in Jordan at the port of Aqaba. My man's getting ready to start a ruckus because I attended the constitutional.
So where did you hear? Where did you hear that the Expeditionary Unit has landed?
Well, they just landed. find it. It's a fact.
Okay, I just haven't seen it.
Report of Aqaba, Marine Expeditionary Unit.
Okay.
The Pentagon let it be known the annual United States Jordanian Eagle Lion 2013 military exercise.
Oh, well, that's a regular military
I understand
maneuver.
that, but isn't it convenient?
It
Let me
is.
explain to you why. Because, I read...
Well, you remember the same thing in North Korea. The same thing happened during that turmoil.
I know, but look, wait a minute now. I rarely go into conspiracy. You know me. I go with facts and evidence.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. But this time, I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I attended the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association meeting in Missouri.
How many other black people
Guess who was there? 300. 300 active duty, retired sheriffs, and police officers and police chiefs. 300, count them, 300.
300 black
in the
ones?
audience.
Oh, yeah?
Huh? Yeah, 300.
Okay. Out of how many? Total.
Across the nation?
I mean,
a few thousand. I mean, it's a pretty good percentage.
Okay.
All right, now, guess who was there?
Who's that?
Lieutenant Mike Zullo, Chief Investigator, Cold Case Posse, Sheriff J.O. Pio, Arizona. And guess what he did? He gave 2 separate briefings. One.
What do you think about Pio's indictment as someone who participated in racial profiling?
Oh, please! You trying to change the subject? So
okay, go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
Ain't you? Come on now.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, but anyway. I'll answer that, but let me finish this, okay? Okay. Again, he gave 2 briefings. One in which he outlined what I've spoken to you all this time, much of the public case, about why Barack Obama is indisputably a fraud and a forgery, to include a certified document examiner from who I named Reed Hayes, whose curriculum vitae looks like an IBM printout sheet. He's done seminal work on document examination. He's certified in Hawaii as an examiner. He says he fears for his life because of all the death threats he's getting, and he says indisputably that birth certificate is a crude forgery. That's nothing new. I mean, the Lieutenant Mike Zulu has given a 40-page report to the Alabama Supreme Court because they've asked for his assistance. And he also gave a private briefing to only peace officers, sheriffs, congressional representatives. It was supposed to have been an hour long, but their mouths dropped and extended to 4 hours. Evidence that has not been revealed to date detailing the criminal case against Barack Obama. Stuff I haven't talked to you about, and I'm sworn not to talk to you about it. I'm not going to tell you. But it's going to come out. And believe me, it is beyond a reasonable doubt. This man is engaged in identity fraud. The only question is whether or not these cowards in the Republican Party and elsewhere are going to do anything about it, because I just heard Marco Rubio today. Marco Rubio say he hasn't seen any evidence about the birth certificate. Mike Zulu can march in his office and give him chapter and verse, and he can spend the whole day with objective evidence, with results. And
Larry, a lot of people,
reproducing themselves.
A lot of folks ask me, so why do you let Larry, expound on this fantastic story he keeps? Because I respect your intelligence, man, and I keep waiting for it to break, but I don't know. I don't know when it's going to happen, man. Because the way you've been telling me, it should have happened a long time ago. Look. And I would much rather use your intelligence for something else, something tangible, rather than this kind of fantasy, man.
Salim,
go ahead.
Trust me on this, Salim.
Yes, sir.
It is moving forward now more. See, I've been following it. Unlike the mainstream press that's been ignoring it and trying to suppress it, I've been following it, details, chapter and verse. It is gathering momentum and steam. It is not losing it. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Believe me, they're not going to be able to keep it. It's going to be like a pressure cooker. It's going to blow off.
All right, Larry.
Steve Stockman now, congressman, is taking the ball. He's going to take it to the Hill. He's already met with Zullo and others. There are more people coming on board whose names you would recognize. Believe me, it's not getting smaller.
All right.
Look, believe me, for this, it's got to be perfect. The presentation's got to be perfect.
Okay, Larry, thank you, man.
Cannot be careless.
Got to go, man.
So, believe me, that's what they're doing. They're working now to get everything in a row, make it ironclad.
All right. There's Larry. Larry from the right, Dwight from the nationalist perspective, both jumping on Barack Obama. He must be doing something right. We'll be back. 807. Salim MuWakkil here on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. Okay, let's go back to the phones. Anita. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. How you doing, Salim?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm truly doing fine, and I'm grateful for your very spirited Larry. He at least he stays on top of what he's trying to do.
Absolutely,
I guess.
absolutely.
And he's very hyper about it, and I like his energy.
All right.
He keeps us busy. I don't deny anything could be possible in this world.
Go ahead.
But what I got lost. I was listening to Dwight, and I heard a lot of his good points. And I was listening to Maceo, and he was talking about the Dells, and the Temptations, and you were talking about the different era. But all of us are different. All of us are unique. All singing groups have their own style and situation that they're dealing with, and why they produce the music that they produce. And we have to look at them as that group and that special talent that we've been blessed to hear, especially if they're really good. All of them are good in their way. Some things don't affect us today that might affect us tomorrow, that we can see a more magic power like in it.
That's true.
But something Dwight has said, I think he was talking about white supremacy and all of that. I feel he's correct about we just do whatever we want to do. And I still say I think my president should stand. The people should raise their own president, that understands something, about the budget and how to make sure that all the different people that are visiting this country and staying here now, and including ourselves, how everyone could fair share what's going on, including the American Indians, because they lost some things too here. But I want to say something about women in position of power. I feel a little controversial today, so I'm going to say this. I don't agree with a lot of things women do when they rise to power. I feel that we have a battle to take men on with, as far as demanding our rights as women, but I don't think we should deny our rights to be women and able to have children. A lot of times, today's women think in order to be a woman with rights, you can't have children. You just have to compete with men, for money. And, not just money.
What do you think about that poll? It found that almost half of the mothers in this country are the main breadwinners of their families.
Most of the women are supported by the government. So how can they say? I mean, honestly, the institution of education is supported by men that have worked, and fought in wars and worked, and women haven't done these things. They were at home. A lot of them, their mothers and grandmothers were having children, and some of them worked. But the men were doing a lot of the things, producing a lot of the money and the income, and I don't give women that credit. That,
that's what
they're breadwinners. If the government's taking care of you or subsidizing you in that kind of a way, I mean, they could say that. Well, no,
it's not the government. It's not the government that's that. They are earning about a quarter of married mothers are making more than their husbands. The researchers found. In addition to the fact that almost half of them are the main breadwinners. These are the
but they're not having children. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I disagree with the fact that I have to act like a man to. Well, no, it's not.
Well, see, Anita, I'm really not asking you whether you agree or disagree with it. I just want to. What I'm interested in is what do you think about these realities that have been revealed in the polls that nearly one half of U.S. households are run by women, and that a quarter of the women who are married are making more than their husbands. Are you happy about that, or are you angry about that?
No, but is she having 6, 7, 8, 9 children and still earning the same as a man?
No, this is in married families, in families that are.
But is she having that many children?
It doesn't indicate how many children the families have.
Check that out. Tell them that.
Well, what difference would that make? What difference would that make for you?
Because to me, you're diminishing your role as a woman to compete with a man, and I don't think that's something required of me as a woman. I think I can with having children and making a career for myself. There's got to be a way other than to stop having children.
But there's nobody. There's no one who said. Anita, no one said that people stop having children. There's no statistic
to compete with men. That's being a man. That's not being a woman.
But I think you are adding your own interpretation to the data. The data doesn't state anything about how many children they have. It hasn't. In fact,
exactly. But I'm not going to deal with how much money she's making, because I feel like this: if you get married and your husband wants you to have children, to me, what I understand, women should have the children. I didn't say she couldn't do anything outside of that. But for those women who
this is information. This is information outside of the data, Anita. All I'm asking you is what do you think about the fact?
It's not important to me. The data's not important.
Okay.
Being how they competed to get the money, and I don't think I have to act like a man to get money and deny myself being a woman. And they're going to tell you, I don't have to do that. But they are.
Well, why do you automatically say? Why do you automatically assume that that's what they're doing?
Because they don't trust men. That's why they don't have children. They'll tell you it's economically, but they don't trust men. They don't want to be in the home with men because they feel like men are going to mistreat them.
All right. Thank you, Anita. Appreciate it.
That's being afraid of men and not working with them.
All right. Thank you, my sister.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe I missed it, but I don't see how all of that extraneous data got into this conversation from those simple statistics. There may be some logical reason why Sister Anita thought it was appropriate to speculate about how many children and whether they hate men but it's hard for me to see how it connects. But that's just me. Steve, good evening. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Right.
I wanted to make a couple of points. I
bet you do.
Back and forth with regard to the same old topic.
Yes, sir.
Once again, I've posed this challenge for a couple of weeks now. I keep asking people to please.
But have you done with what Dwight asked of you to check?
What did he ask me to check?
He asked you to check the pre-Columbian effigies.
Exactly, and that took all of 5 seconds because it was a question that didn't need to be asked, because it's quite simple. If you in fact look at the people who currently occupy the region where in fact the Olmecs are supposed to have originated, you find that comparing their facial features to that of their representations, you find that is exactly what the representations are meant to reflect. That we tend to think of Native Americans as looking like Native Americans who are here in America, North America, as in the United States and so forth. But when you go to Central and South America, you find Native Americans who have very flat noses, very large lips, again, it is
what is traditionally called Negroid features.
Exactly. So it is very easy to then to superficially say, well, look, this must be an African face that is depicted. When in reality, if you look at the very people who are standing 10 feet away from where that object was taken out of the earth, that's exactly what they look like. In the same way that we have pyramids around the world, they are found in Cambodia and Egypt. They're found in Mesoamerica, and people who are absolutely on the fringes of any sort of credible research, people like Graham Hancock, who think that aliens from outer space were really responsible for the building of the Egyptian pyramids or had a contribution therein. These are the kind of people who will tell you that, all of these sorts of pyramids are related, when in fact they're separated by thousands of years. They're developed through different building techniques used for very different reasons. So the link is simply that mankind tends to think alike in various parts of the world, and the fact that superficially something looks like something else somewhere else does not make it so. So to simply say,
but Steve, tell me this, man. Do you think that it is at all plausible that a people who evolve for millennia on one continent, which is what science is revealing, that until 50 to 100,000 years ago, most of just about all of humanity existed on one continent to a little settlement ventured outside of the continent and populated the rest of the planet? I mean, you do agree with that trajectory, right?
That is exactly a wonderful point with regard to the question of scientific methodology, because we cannot, on the one hand, embrace the same methodology.
Well, okay, but what I'm asking is that during all of that time on that one continent, do you think it is at all possible that some people may have ventured out in other directions other than across the Red Sea, went out in other directions, perhaps?
It's absolutely true. People can venture in all sorts of directions
and wound up in Central America.
Absolutely. But the question then becomes, one can ask the question, but then one must produce the proof. That's part of the scientific method.
There are folks who say that
exactly, and 99.9% of the other people who have looked at
have you checked out the evidence of have you been as assiduous and examining the evidence, trying to prove that there was a pre-Columbian presence, an African pre-Columbian presence in the New World? Have you been as assiduous in researching that as you have been in researching the arguments against it?
Yes, that's why I'm familiar with the various authors that we talk about. When we talk about, Van Sertima, when we talk about Ben Jacob, when we talk about Diop, when we talk about all sorts of, and as a matter of fact, you brought up a wonderful point with regard to Asante at Temple University, with regard to the question of the conflict within Afrocentric thinking.
Yes.
In terms of why is it, he poses the argument, why is it that Africans are talking about Egypt? We are from Western Africa, as he points out.
That's
and
right.
This notion that a previous caller brought up, that the scholarship that one person has done with regard to identifying, an absolutely wonderful scholarship with regard to the technological achievements in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, does not legitimize claims.
Basil Davidson is
exactly. One does not legitimize claims of African presence in the Americas. That's a different argument, and you need to support that. So, on the one hand, he is credentialed and he is respected because he uses scientific methodology and therefore supports that argument in terms of technological development in sub-Saharan Africa. But then all of a sudden, we need to dismiss that same methodology when it refutes his claims in the Americas. You can't have it both ways.
You're absolutely right, but but I doubt if the folks who are making this claim would say that evidence has been refuted, that evidence has been successfully refuted.
Again, in linguistics, in history, archaeology, cultural anthropology, genetics, not a single oversight body has endorsed the notion that the Olmec culture has its roots culturally, linguistically, in any way, shape, or form in Africa. So again, when people talk about, well, I can name the following people. Yes, and I could sit here for the next 2 hours and talk about the rest of 99.9%, including people like Clarence Walker and so many others who are African American and African scholars who refute Afrocentrism.
Oh, sure, there are many who do, and including Skip Gates.
Exactly.
The most prominent African American scholar, one of the most prominent, I guess, or popular, let me say.
Exactly, and I understand absolutely why people would want to believe this sort of thing. And by the way, there are a number of lunatic scholars who want to talk about the Scandinavian origins of Olmec culture.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're absolute lunacy. There are people who will tell you, for instance, Solutrean spear points that are found in the eastern part of the United States that are almost identical to those found in France, in Neolithic France. So their argument, the Israeli, the tribe of the
Scandinavians are actually the lost tribe of Israel.
Yes.
I mean, you get all of these nonsensical, and you could call them white supremacist historical claims. They are just as illegitimate as many of these claims. So again, people are trying to assess that they know what is scholarship without themselves having any credentials, background, experience, education in the field. It took me years of study as an undergraduate, graduate, as a doctoral candidate to understand scientific methodology, peer review, and you must acquaint yourself with these things before.
Hey, man, you're beginning to sound a little bit elitist there.
Well, Steve. I mean, I may sound a little bit elitist, but I'm one of those crazy people who actually believes that the best person to assess your heart condition may be a cardiologist with a degree in the field and credentials, and the best person to represent you in a court of law might be someone with a law degree.
All right. Not a shaman.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Okay, let's go to Mike. Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Salim, sir, how you doing?
I'm good, my brother.
Great. And I heard you on Matt's show, and you guys was talking about, I think, the state of the Black Union.
Yes, sir.
In Illinois, and some of the issues that we was dealing with when it comes to education and teen violence.
Yes, sir.
And I think you made a statement that me and a couple of my buddies and even my wife was trying to understand why you made this statement.
Okay.
So basically I'm calling so you can clarify, maybe go into a little more detail as to what you was talking about. But Matt was going on, as he so often do, and in this particular case, I kind of agree with Matt when he talks about someone actually shooting someone else or dropping out of school or teen pregnancy, that I think what Kurt was referring to, Matt was saying, where they need to get off the street. And you used the term, if you deal with the symptoms, then you will basically always have the symptoms to deal with.
That's right.
And so I was understanding that you was referring to the actions of our kids in our community, gang violence, shooting, killing, teen pregnancy, dropout rate. These were the symptoms.
Yes, sir.
So I looked up the word symptoms, and symptoms is a sign or an indication of something. Mm-hmm. So what we was trying to figure out is what is the something that you refer to that indicates those behaviors from our kids.
Yes, sir. Very astute, let me say, because that's exactly my point. Is those are the symptoms of a lot of things. Primarily, I say the lack of cultural capital, but you can say self-hatred. You can say a socialization for subservience over centuries, as African Americans were, because you look at the criminal justice system in this country, and you see that at this point more than 50% of the jail population are African American, and yet we only 12% of the population. That's an enormous disparity. So either you have to say that there's some inherent or genetic predisposition toward criminality that we have, or there's something wrong with the system that continuously places us in the incarceration setup, in the carceral complex within that jail system. Either there's something wrong with us, or there's something wrong with a system that refuses to assimilate us.
Okay.
And so it's my position that there's something wrong with the system that refuses to assimilate us. We've been socialized to be dysfunctional in many ways, and we have to re-socialize ourselves. And that's the problem. And if we get caught up in the symptoms of our dysfunction, we'll continuously be dysfunctional and simply feed on our own dysfunction. We'll have vigilantes angry at the criminals. Then we'll have criminals angry at the vigilantes, and we'll be at each other's throats in a civil war rather than acting in concert to take care of our original problem, which is a lack of cultural capital.
Now, because when me and my team got together and tried to analyze the situation, because one of the things that we do is we created a plan that is basically designed to unite the black community under one purpose. And that purpose is to increase parent involvement for the purpose of teaching them how to send their kids to school ready to learn. This plan...
Parental involvement is your major agenda item.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And based on our research, what we need to focus on when it comes to the education piece towards our kids is that if our kids are not coming to school with the mindset of learning or receiving an education, if they come with any other mindset, it's difficult, if not impossible, for them to actually accomplish that.
Yes, sir.
But also based on our research, the only person that is involved in a child's life that is authority that can force them into that mindset if they're not willing to be given that mindset by self-motivation is the parent. So we focus on the parent for the purpose of teaching them how to send their kids to school ready to learn.
That's very important. Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we looked at is that in order for us to actually accomplish this, there are so many different organizations in the city of Chicago that have already tried to accomplish this. But we understand that there's a division within those organizations, and there's 2 points. One is responsibility, and the other one is oppression or government involvement. Mm-hmm. People like President Obama and Bill Cosby, I think even Minister Louis Farrakhan, talks about personal responsibility. Mm-hmm. Then you have other people, Al Sharpton, maybe Jackson, even Father Flagrant, mentions there's a lot of things that the government needs to do. Now, you have the teaching and saying, I know Sharpton and Jackson basically say both and. They don't say, no, we just need this, but we also need personal responsibility. But what we're looking at is that, based on your statement, if you deal with the symptoms, then you will always have the symptoms to deal with. You must deal with the problem. So just say we're talking about a cold. If someone has a cold, there are signs or indications that the person have a cold, a runny nose, a headache, or et cetera, et cetera. Now, these indications are not choices that the person make to have the cold. Now, they are the indication of the cold. The cold is something that you get based on maybe you're irresponsible, not wearing a hat or whatever.
Well, so right, okay, yeah, whatever.
Right. Now, if your example is true, then we will have to say that the kids who are actually doing the killing and dropping out of school and teen pregnancy, they did not choose to do that. That which caused them to do that is gave them no choice. And so that was the confusing part. How can we say that these are the symptoms of oppression from, slavery or whatever, Jim Crow, whatever, when the symptoms are something that you don't choose, and we know for a fact that you choose to shoot, you choose to kill, you choose to drop out, you choose to get pregnant.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think people choose. I think people make choices within a context. You always have a context from which you make your choices. When I grew up, for example, just about everything I did to have fun was illegal.
Okay.
Because that's just the way we roll in that part of where I grew up. I mean, and a lot of cats grow up like that. I mean, that's part of the risk and the fun and the peril of growing up. And had I been caught for any of those things, I might still be in prison, incarcerated right now. And I didn't mean any harm by doing it. It was just the way I was socialized.
NBC News Radio, I'm Betty Nguyen. There are changes at the top of the Obama administration.
I am
Hello?
Is that the news?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. There was a mistake in the.
Okay.
Okay. Now that kind of threw me off. Now.
Right. Well, okay. See, I understand what you're saying, but if you say that, even though you were limited in what you decided to do, okay, you had limitations. Say if you are a teen in the city of Chicago and your parents don't have enough money for you to actually go see a movie, you're limited physically. You cannot do that because you have to do that. So
exactly.
So you go downtown.
Your choices. All I'm saying is that your choices are within a context. If you look at crime around the planet, it tends to be heaviest where there is a lack of resources. Where the context of choices is limited and people have a certain limitation of choices. They tend to do what they have to do in order to survive.
Okay, wait, but see, you said have to do. Now, there is an order of things, okay? And so, of course, if you don't get a quality education, which starts at the beginning of your birth, okay, even as a child.
Even before that, even before that, prenatal nutrition.
Right. That's what I mean by birth to 5 years old, pre-care. Okay, now, if you don't get these things, that's not you. You didn't have anything to do with that.
That's right.
A bad parenting. So you didn't get that. Now, then you move on to grammar school or whatever. Now, there are kids in America in those same situations and conditions that did not choose to do that, even though they didn't get quality child care.
You're right, man. That there are always aberrations, and there are always people who survive despite certain kind of conditions.
Okay,
but, right. So, and in my case, even there was a guy who said something to me one day that made a great impression on me. He was a mentor, although he didn't even know he was a mentor. But and so there are all kinds of reasons why people rise above their conditions, but you have to, I think, look at the mean, look at the situation that people find themselves in, and look at the mean rather than the exception. and understand how society is orienting people. And look at our situation socioeconomically, where we stand in the socioeconomic scale, and where we've always been since we've been in this country. And it seems undeniable, really, when you really examine it. It seems undeniable that we have suffered because of a lack of resources and access to capital.
Right. No one is saying that it's not difficult. Mm-hmm. But what I'm also saying is that when you put two people in the same situation from the same circumstance or the same text that you're referring to, one person rise up, the other person falls.
Yes.
That is because you have to choose to do that. If you only give one person a choice to fall, if you just say you have to fall, then that's not a choice. But if they can actually choose to rise up, then we can't say that it's the circumstance or the text in which they're in caused them to fall. We have to say that it's the choice that they basically choose to do the latter.
I can go with that, man. I can go with that. And I think you're right. I think, we can't simply absolve people of all choice. But my point is that you make a choice within a context. I thought, and many young brothers think that if you hurt somebody, that increases your status, because that's the context in which they exist.
Right.
It's the context that's important that we have to deal with.
Right, exactly right. But the context is not the first thing that occurs in the person's life to get them to actually think like that. There is a foundation that a person goes through,
and unfortunately, too many of our children don't have that foundation. They grow up without any kind of guidance or foundation, and as you point out, even without the kind of prenatal nutrition that would predispose them to be more receptive to positive input.
Right. That's why we focus on parents.
Well, that's a good focus, brother.
Right.
I don't disagree with that focus whatsoever, and I appreciate the conversation, Mike. Thank you, man. Bro. All right. Take care. When a brother calls up with that kind of honest inquisition, it's worth getting into, no doubt about it. Let's go to Randy. Hey, Randy, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well, Brother Salim.
Yes, sir.
I like that discussion you had with the previous caller.
Mm-hmm. Brother raises good points.
Yes, raised some good points, along with the other callers. I think raised some interesting points. Larry is something; he's quite a character, and Steve is interested too. But I think that I have to agree with the other brother that has the kind of nationalist point of view.
Dwight.
Yeah.
Brother Dwight.
Yeah, I kind of lean towards that. I'm more to the black nationalist.
Yes, sir.
Pan-Africanist, black left. And I'm going to throw a few things out there. You remember, you studied under John G. Jackson. You teach at Rutgers University.
I did.
And for a while, he taught at the Center for City Studies, taught comparative religion. And, he wrote a book, Man, God, and Civilization. And
sure did.
Brother John G. Jackson. And then there's the other works, the African Presence in Early Asia, edited by Runoko Rashidi, who's given a number of lectures over the years. Runoko was kind of a student of John Henry Clark and Dr. Ben.
That's why you need to be on my Facebook page, Randy, because Runoko is a frequent contributor.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm definitely gonna have to look into that, man. We've been talking about this for years. You always have told me about it.
Yes,
Facebook along with the internet, and I appreciate that because I did get into the internet.
Yes, sir. It's amazing.
I think the Facebook thing, I wouldn't want my picture out there. It scares too many people. It scares too many people, so I wouldn't want to be on Facebook. But I agree with you, and I just was throwing some sources out there, like the other book on the African Presence in Early Europe, edited by Ivan Van Sertima. Of course, they came before closed by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, and then you got the book Black Britannica by Edward Scobie. He's not that well known, our brother Edward Scobie.
Spell his name. Spell his name, Randy.
Scobie, Scobie.
Okay.
Yeah, he did some wonderful work on the black presence in England and Britain and stuff. Excellent research. He died a number of years ago. Great scholar.
Yes, sir.
And then he wrote a book called The Global African Presence by Edward Scobie. Okay. And then you had the 100 Amazing Facts of the Negro by Joel Augustus Rogers, or J. Rogers.
J.A.
And then you mentioned Basil Davison.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he was a brilliant European scholar.
Yeah, that Maceo is the one who brought him up because we were trying to provide Steve with some alternative scholarship.
Yeah, well, Michael Bradley wrote the book
The Iceman Inheritance. Yeah.
And also Chosen People from the Caucasus.
Yeah.
By Michael Bradley. He's from Canada.
Yes, he is. But his work has been thoroughly condemned by scholars.
Well, the thing about it, you know why?
Yeah.
Because the thing about it is that he kind of leans more towards, he kind of substantiates a lot of stuff that many African-centered scholars have put out and stuff. So, but people need to go to the Center for Institute Studies if they want more information about African scholarship. Check out the Association of the Study of Classical African Civilization.
And Kemetic Institute.
Right, the Kemetic Institute. And also the Association of African Historians, that's Dr. Anderson Thompson.
Dr. Andy, boy, that brother knows his stuff.
Man. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely right, Brother Salim. And the other place, I was thinking about it was the Oriental Institute. They have some interesting stuff, but you know what? I think that many people who run that Oriental Institute, I don't know, I think that those who helped set that up, they're basically grave robbers, because much of that stuff came from Africa and all throughout Egypt and et cetera.
Yes, sir. Although they are responsible for re-enshrining Nubia in so-called mainstream scholarship.
Right.
Because it
always had some problems with them.
Exactly.
With the university. As a matter of fact, I was going to study there back in the 80s and 90s. I was going to take some classes there. So, but I have some question marks about. I have some questions.
I mean, there's some knowledgeable folks who come through there, man.
There's some great people there. Really, I like Dr. Dawson, Michael Dawson.
Michael Dawson is amazing.
I think he's a brilliant scholar. As a matter of fact, he has a new book out about the Black Left.
Yes, he does. Yes, sir. What's the name of it though? I forgot the title.
Yeah, it was called something about the Black Left, or how the Black Left has failed to help bring about change.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I can't quite get it, but it's somebody will probably call and let us know.
But it's at I saw it at the 57th Street bookstore, 57 in Kembar.
Well, Behind the Mule is an excellent book as well.
Oh, yes.
Man.
Oh, that was an excellent book by Michael Dawson. That was an excellent book. As a matter of fact, the National Conference of Black Political Sciences he received an award or something like that. Research.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a brilliant scholar like yourself.
Yes, indeed.
And then his other book I really appreciate, Black Visions. By Michael Dawson.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a good one. And then also Not in Our Lifetime. That was the last one I purchased. I picked up by Michael Dawson on Not in Our Lifetime. It's an interesting book by Dr. Dawson. I think he's pretty sharp like himself. Keep up excellent work, my man. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it. You too, man. Appreciate it, brother.
All right. Thank you very much.
Take care of yourself. All right. Mr. Bibliophile. Let's go to Andre. Andre, how you doing, my brother?
Okay, Salim, how you feel tonight?
I'm well, man. I'm well. What about you?
Oh, I'm doing well as well.
Good.
Thank you much. Yeah, my comment tonight, Salim, is concerning Mark Kirk and Bobby Rush.
Yes, sir.
Salim, you had a situation where Secretary Jesse White's daughter was discovered around the project in a bad way. You had Bobby Rush's son that was gunned down on 95th Street in Chicago. You have Bill Cosby's son that was killed. Now, there's other ones that I can't name that happen to black people. Some of them are celebrity status, some of them are just the average Joe. But yet, when that has occurred, there hasn't been no leadership and no crowd to say, hey, we got a problem in our community, let's do something about this. Now, the way I see it, if we don't come together as black people and find some solutions to our socioeconomic problems, then the white man has a plan for us. If we cannot come up with a plan to try and solve these problems. Now, there is a such thing as tough love. When you talk about locking up people and rounding up people, it sounds bizarre, and it is bizarre, because I'm not for wholesale locking up anybody. But the conversation has to start somewhere. Some attention has to be brought to the situation in order for people to become involved and do some things. Now, some say, Salim, well, let's give them jobs, that's the answer. Well, look at a lot of our successful rappers and a lot of our successful African-American singers that have been successful, made money. Did they change their lifestyle? Absolutely not. You have,
but their children, but many of their children, my brother, have had the advantages of resources and have completely diverted the direction of the family because of the success that they've had in certain entertainment areas. So I mean, it has had an effect in many ways.
Right, and I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So the situation where you have a guy in our community,
if you listen, for example, if you listen to Biggie Small's son or daughter, man, you never believe that they came from those loins.
And I understand what you're saying, mm-hmm. but you take a guy in our community, a black guy in our community, whether he is a member of the Gangster Disciples or not. How do you take a person like that likes to have 24-inch chrome wheels on their car, convertible top, braids in their hair, and wearing white beaters? How do you change that type of mentality? You think you could do it simply by giving them a job? No. So I'm saying, anytime anybody comes,
if they do criminal activity, then they deserve a criminal response. But the point is that a lot of these folks, don't have to be socialized into criminal activity. There are other ways, and we have to begin on those other ways. And rather than if you simply, we've tried the arrest route. I mean, we've had more black men in prison than the entire planet, than other demographic cohorts on the entire planet, and we see what that has resulted in. It's a perpetuation of the situation.
Well, I understand that, but I say that something has to give. Whenever not you and I, but whenever the people that called WVON have discussed this situation, they say, let's bring on the National Guards. People said, no, we don't want to do that. And my suggestion was that we spending thousands of dollars a year to keep them in jail. Why not at 18 years old, if they're not going to college and they don't have a job, let's send them to the military because we're spending money anyway. I would have liked to see the $30 million that Mark Kerr's asking for go towards something like that. Or either try and change the situation from a different perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the correct way. All right. So some I don't think military, maybe national service or something like that would be a good alternative.
Something pertaining to, I mean, I don't know.
Remember Job Corps? Job Corps was a good idea, man. Yeah, it was a good idea.
I don't know if they still have ROTC, Reserve Officers Training Corps. But these things were started. They were paramilitary, so to speak, in high school.
Yes.
Because they had got that training. So it was already in the system. But the thing is to take it a step further because we would all have to agree that it's got to start somewhere.
I agree. I agree with you, brother. But if we start on enforcement, then that I think that's the tail wagging the dog.
You say if you start on enforcement?
Yes. If you lock folks up, that's the root of the problem. That simply perpetuates the problem. Mass incarceration, because people have to get out sometime. And not only that, but you deplete the community of the agency and energy of those folks who you are siphoning into the prison system. Many of these people are the most entrepreneurial and the most energetic in our community. If their talents can be redirected or directed in the correct way, we would utilize that power for our own benefit. But it gets siphoned into a useless system that only perpetuates the problem.
Right. Well, tell me this, Salim. You know that I don't forget what it is. I don't know if it's 3.5%, 4%, but the unemployment rate, to my understanding, will always be somewhere between 3 and 4%. There is simply not enough jobs for everybody that's old enough, able enough to have a job. What do we do with the people, in particular in our community, that's old enough, able enough, but there's simply not enough jobs in the private sector or the government sector to provide jobs for all of these people? Then how do we deal with this crime element if not let them go to the military?
There are many people who have done work on this, and they contend that there are many, many ways to provide employment if we were really serious about it. If we were really serious about it and didn't have these kind of ideological obstructions, we could provide employment for every citizen. There wasn't. In fact, there was a full employment bills that were passed by the Congress many times throughout the history of this country, especially since the New Deal. But there's never been acted upon because of the ideological obstruction from the Republicans. Thank you, my brother. Appreciate it, Andre.
Okay, Salim. Have a good night.
You too. All right, let's go to Witherspoon. Witherspoon, hey, my brother, how are you, sir?
God bless you, Salim.
And you too, Reverend Witherspoon.
We got that. There got to be a summer that we're going to go out to the young people, Salim, go out to young people.
That's
teach
right.
them and develop them that they can become something positive in the community.
Yes, absolutely, man. And that's why, the state of Black Chicago Congress was focused in many ways on young people, which was a good thing to see. They're trying to be intergenerational. We have to do more of that.
And we have to keep informing them and keep finding out what their talent is. A lot of young people in Inglewood, Roseland, and North Londale community have talent. We have to spotlight those talents and put them out there and let them showcase their talent.
Absolutely right. Yes, sir. I agree.
So keep work up. Salim.
Thank you, brother, Reverend Witherspoon, and you too, my brother. Take care.
God bless.
And you. Reverend Witherspoon. Let's go to James. Hey, my brother, how are you?
I'm great.
All right.
I told you this before, brother. I don't see nothing wrong with the term Barack Bush. Matter of fact, it says it all in a nutshell about him. And you call him custodian of the empire, Barack Bush. They saying the same thing.
Well, yeah, but it's also saying that, but it's not just Bush. Why not say Barack Reagan or Barack Carter or Barack Douglas?
Because he preceded Bush. But you're right. He's just like Reagan. He's working for the empire, just like them.
That's right. So I don't think it makes a useful distinction, man.
Well, I'm just saying. But when you're talking to the sheep. And when I talk to the sheep and I say Barack Bush, I see their eyes, kind of lighten up. I see them kind of get to thinking. So it just says it all real quick. Now, the brother just got off talking about enough jobs. There's only enough job in a true communist socialist system.
Yeah, that's right.
Where the people are working to help people.
Yes, sir.
Not for profit.
You got it.
That's the only time you're going to have enough jobs. Now, brother, you said you talked to Frances Cress Westland. Was that on a talk show, or you just talked to her in person?
She called in one time. We had to, on one Saturday. We talked for about half an hour.
Oh, that was good. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think about her theory, brother?
I think it's a plausible theory, man. I think that there's a genetic understanding that's beneath our intellectual understanding, and sometimes, but at the same time, you can take a theory in many ways. Her essential theory is that white people see us as a threat, as a genetic threat. And so they want to get rid of us. But the other way of looking at it, if you look at genetic logic as being beyond intellectual reasoning, you could say that white people want to incorporate the genetic bequeathal that Africans have. For example, when ultraviolet rays become so concentrated that skin cancer becomes a problem, there's not enough melanin in the skin of white genes, so it behooves their gene pool to incorporate as much melanin as they can. And so the genetic logic would be for them to integrate. That's the genetic logic, for them to try to incorporate melanin into their gene pool. So if you're going to use genetic logic to say that white people want to get rid of black people, or they want to not, you have to also go further and say that, well, that genetic logic also sees that there's a benefit to incorporating black genetic material into their gene pool.
Yeah, I think racism kind of blind them on that thought that you just mentioned. Yeah, but why don't you try to have her on sometime where we can have a long discussion with her, because I don't agree with her all the way, but I do feel like racism has got out of hand, and they do think that there's these superior people in the world, and they want to rub out anybody else who's not from the Caucasian line.
Yes.
So I do think they want to do that. So I would like, you could have our own. Maybe
Okay.
get into more discussion about that.
Yes, sir. All right, James.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother. Brother James. Let's go to Kellen. Hey, Kellen.
How you doing, Salim?
I'm cool, brother. How are you?
Okay. I'm going to make a suggestion for Steve and Larry to read Carter G. Woodson, The Miseducation of the Negro, for the intellectual scholars right there, especially for Steve.
Mm-hmm.
On his theory on the black culture and evolution. So
I can almost guarantee you that Steve has read that already.
Okay, doesn't sound like he does though. Doesn't sound like it.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like it. And as for your situation with the black culture here in Chicago and the country, what's your solution for cultural capitalism for the problems we have in our community? And another thing, a dysfunctional family we have in our community. What's the solution for that, Salim?
Okay, my brother, you asked. Of course, you realize you asked a question that is a 2-hour answer, right?
Well, you could do it in a minute or two. Let's see if you can get it down.
I think we lack cultural capital, man. I think the real answer is the true answer is compensation, a compensatory program like the Marshall Plan that saved Europe once it was destroyed in war-torn Europe. We didn't say pick yourself up by your bootstraps or or don't be dependent on somebody else. We're going to give you outright currency to pull yourself up, and whatever you need, here are your resources. I think if the African American community was delivered similar kinds of resources, we would, within a generation, we would develop the kind of cultural capital that would make us the equal of just about anybody else on this planet.
But Salim, that would never happen in this country.
Well, see, I think saying it will never happen ensures that it will never happen.
But in this country, racism always prevails.
All right, my brother. I hear you. Thank you, sir.
Then.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Make sure you stay tuned for Brother Chef Rome after we finish up this evening, and you'll get some good information. Make sure you stay tuned. Brother David, good evening. How are you, sir?
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm from Chicago, but I'm out here in Philly. I live in Philly now.
Philly. All right, my brother.
Yes, I listen to
that's where the house collapsed, right?
Yeah. I get to see Gamble and Huff.
Yes.
Kenny Gamble, I mean, just not to get off subject, but Kenny Gamble, that's the man out here. He owns blocks. He has schools, apartments, houses. I never seen. He took his money and he helped the people.
He's a bad brother, no doubt about it, man.
Yeah, no doubt. But
yes,
I was calling because I was listening today, and I was wondering, had you ever heard or had anybody ever told you about the DVD series called Hidden Colors?
Yes, sir. Very familiar with it.
Oh, have you seen it yet?
Yes, I have. I haven't seen part 2 though.
Okay, because I just got part 2 a couple of weeks ago, and the people that you were just talking about, Francis Cress Welsing, Runoko Rashidi, they're all in there.
They certainly are.
And they're giving real good information, and I think that those DVDs should be required in maybe 7th, 8th, all the way up into college level. I think that's a good idea for our kids to learn some cultural, what were you calling it, cultural collateral?
Cultural capital.
Cultural capital. I think that would really help. I was very impressed by what I've seen and what I heard. And I have a lot of the books. I have the Carter G. Woodson books and The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. So I'm really familiar with a lot of things. But that as they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yes, sir. It is a very effective teaching medium, no doubt about it, brother.
They showed it at ICE theaters. I guess when it debuted, and I was on the internet, and the place was packed.
Yes, sir.
Rafters. They had people standing.
Absolutely.
So people want to know, and I just think I don't know. I just think that it should be required. Learning. I showed my stepsons volume 1. They were now 10 and 11. They were sitting there looking at it. One of them was trying to play his game and not pay attention. I'm like, you got to pay attention. And the other one, he's always receptive. So he's looking at it, and I like any questions you have, you ask me. We'll have a Q&A afterwards. So they looked at it and they were like, we didn't know. They were young, but I wanted them to see something.
But that's good, man. That's the way it should be done, my brother. Absolutely. Appreciate that. Thanks for that suggestion, man. Got to go. Thank you, David. All right, Kay, good evening. How you doing? You got a little bit of time, my sister, as usual.
Run through it real quick.
Okay.
And gentlemen, the person who replaced Susan Rice, what is her name? You know, the one that Barack Obama is she got Susan Rice's job.
Samantha Power.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is she black?
No.
Oh, okay. So then the gentleman said that she wrote a book.
I think he was talking about Susan Rice's book.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. The thing is, if China is helping Africa economically, why not have the U.S. help Africa economically instead of
why not?
bombs?
Why not?
You know what I mean? If that's what they're going to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, why not? But they're going in with combat boots.
That's what I'm saying. But why not do it economically instead of
why not
guns?
Exactly.
Because wouldn't that work out better for the U.S.?
Don't you think?
And the world? Yeah. And then the other thing is, I really think that it's going to get a lot worse for the continent now that Susan, because she seems to be the woman, she's like Darth Vader. It's so unfortunate that the black woman is doing that.
Yes, ma'am, it is. Thank you. I want to get this one more one more cat on before we finish up. Thank you. Dirk.
Brother Salim.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, man?
Good. Very quickly, brother.
Real quick, man. You know what? We're delusional as a race, man. We still don't realize that there's so many avenues set up against us and that racism has not went anywhere. And what we do is internalize our hate on ourselves. That is our problem, and that's what's killing us. I appreciate it,
I think you have a great point, brother. Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Dirk. Yes, unfortunately, I think Dirk has a very good point. We've yet to figure out a way to rechannel our lack of esteem, our self-derision. And it comes out, I think, in fratricidal behavior. And that's what we have to work on. That's one of the many things we have to work on.